man on fire.
Okay, hello humans. Welcome back to the Slackline Quote of the Day daily broadcast. You are here with the boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
And it is Throwback Thursday. We are coming at you. This is January 11th here in rainy Vancouver, Canada. We are talking a little bit of quotes, some famous people, some other people, anything we kind of hear. We just finished a taping of the Big Slackline, which will come at you on Sunday this week with our good friend Bryce Jorger and, of course, our co-host JWoww. Really interesting, fun conversation about some differing opinions on politics and potential President Oprah Winfrey and stuff of that nature. So yeah, it was fun. Recommend you guys check it out on again, that'll be posted on Sunday. And we're gonna go to the quote today, brought to you by a new helpful app, DoUsh, the work alarm that will yell at you until you get your shit done. That is a DoUsh. That's a new helpful app Greg found to sponsor our quote today. It's a long one. It's a two-parter. Throwback Thursday is bringing us a two-parter. Here we go. It is Helen Keller, a writer, activist, fought for women's rights and disabled people's rights, and was blind and deaf before the age of 2. So she's kind of an inspirational person for a lot of people. And this quote comes from her. I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble. The world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of its heroes, but also by the aggregate of the tiny pushes of each honest worker. That again is Helen Keller, writer, activist, and all-around inspiration. It's kind of a two-parter. I considered splitting it into two pieces, but I don't think so. I think keep it together because there are two interesting lessons to come from it. We'll examine kind of the first part of it first. I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble. I think there's a lesson in there of like focusing on the small things that lead to big goals, versus letting that one big goal kind of take over your mind, and maybe give you the idea that the small little tasks that will lead that way, doing that job, that entry level job that is below you, or doing getting some coffee and stuff like that as part of your internship and those types of things, like or even just small things like taking care of yourself, personal hygiene and those types of things. Like if you're too focused on long-term things, then you can forget those little things are what add up to that goal, And when you do those tasks, like when you do get at whatever it is, even if it's brushing your teeth, all the way from brushing your teeth to, doing a job that you're not exactly happy with, you kind of have to set aside and put the larger goal aside and finish with all your effort, what like kind of is immediately in front of you, or you can kind of just get lost thinking that the small tasks are useless or not worth it or not doing anything. Yeah, I kind of wish I could take my own advice in that regard. A lot of this stuff anyways, all these kind of podcasts, it's just stuff I wish I could apply myself. A lot of preaching what I don't really necessarily practice, but it would be nice. And so that's kind of the thing I take from the beginning of that quote is to really just think about accomplishing the small little things that need to get done in order for your larger goal to take shape. I do a lot of writing, and so it can be maddening sometimes to sit there and have like a very kind of full idea of what an interesting story or something that you think is an interesting story, um but then not like you have to write it down. You word by word you have to put it down, until that is just an idea in your head, and then after that you have to go and find somebody that finds it interesting enough to purchase it off of you, right? So and even in those moments, like, you can't think about, oh well, uh the big goal of meeting the big person, and like, you have to take kind of like every meeting, and you go and you talk to people, and you have to really kind of pimp yourself out there, and all of those little things are what add up to an ultimate goal versus I could try and send all of my writing just to the top publishers or just to Steven Spielberg, and that's it, and never hear anything from them or whatever, and just say, well, nobody liked my work. It's like, well, you don't know that. You only tried a few people, and just because they were the big fish, you think that it's they're the people to go after or whatever, which is not always the case. I mean, if we go back to our cast from yesterday, talking about people that are following their gut feelings, sometimes it's a much more interesting ride to kind of hitch yourself to a wagon like that, and follow more of a chaotic pathway, I guess, than in a very planned out route. But so the second part of the quote I found, this is kind of the one that made me want to split it out, because it kind of has whole other not just personal but global sort of meanings as well. And the second half of that again is, the world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of its heroes, but also by the aggregate of the tiny pushes of each honest worker. And I think that's something that like our culture is forgetting. The people that are doing kind of the menial tasks, either whether it's in our daily lives, like garbage people that are collecting recycling and those types of things, all the way to even successful businesses, successful enterprise. Like, they don't tend to give personal respect, but more so financial respect, in my opinion. Like I said, I used to work for a large company, and I started there as a student and doing kind of male person duties, and just kind of all around fill in duties around the office and stuff like that. And so I ended up working kind of at the bottom rung of what goes on there in the mailroom, and stuff like that, and meeting the people that worked in there and seeing how hard they worked, and they're there just as long as anybody else, if not longer. And if they're not in there doing these manual things, like putting letters through, and putting checks through and stuff like that, then like the clients of everybody else don't get their money. I just had to put something into like a little computer in my office or whatever, and then these people all take care of it physically. And then I find out that they have to like work, some of them have to work like 2 jobs in order to support a family, in order to have a kid go through hockey or something like that. And like, this is it's a huge company, billions of dollars in profit, and like, to me, there's no reason why that person why anybody in this company should have to work 2 jobs in order to support a family. Like, to me, that is just not okay. And I think it's this mentality that we've forgotten, that these people, they add up and they help the business. I was ahead of them as far as pay scale goes, but I felt that way too, because I was a young guy working in kind of a major group, and they again, like, most of my duties were administrative within this group, but I kind of felt that there was always this air that my work wasn't as important, which, I mean, kind of technically it's not, but it has to get done. Somebody has to do it. And if it wasn't me, or in the case of the male person, if it wasn't them, then it would have to be somebody else. Like, it's not like we could just lose that person and we would be fine. So yeah, I don't agree with this kind of mentality that your people are earning everything that they're getting. You, people are talking about having hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. Like, nobody works that much harder than anybody else. If anything, people that are at the bottom rung of things, working 2 jobs and trying to support families and stuff like that, are quote unquote the tiny pushes, are working harder than anybody else. Sometimes those people end up becoming the people that have the power for the mighty pushes, and some of them end up forgetting along the way that people helped them, that their employees, without their employees, without everybody that has ever worked for them or given them a chance or whatever, helps them. And there becomes this mentality that they've done it all themselves, that they were just this force of nature that nobody could contend with. And you're like, well, no. I mean, who put you through school? Who were your friends that supported you? Who gave you your a first chance at your business and gave you a loan or an investment, like blah, 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 like all down the line. And now to who delivers your mail, who is bringing you these contracts for you to sign, and why are they here 4 hours longer than you and paid peanuts comparatively. That's like, those types of situations in my mind aren't right. And I firmly believe that businesses would be more productive and therefore more profitable in the long run if they looked at their employees and paid them more according to like a function of their profit, rather than not keeping them up with the growing economy that you as a large pusher are creating, right? Or mighty shove, I should say, not a pusher. that you as a mighty shover are creating. And there is, like, obviously there's benefit and there's honor in that, in a way, depending on how you're doing it, obviously. And again, in my opinion, doing it by kind of exploiting people up along the way is not really a good way to go about it. And this quote to me is just should remind people that those little things that are happening all around us, even not just in a business, but like I said, people who collect trash, people who collect recycling, people who are cleaning out outhouses and stuff like that, people who clean up parks, all those types of things, they get taken for granted until they're not there, right? Like, if you walk through a park every day and it was messy, you'd be like, why is nobody cleaning this up? Yet you walk through a park with your kid and you see somebody out there cleaning it up with a little grabber or whatever, an employee of the city. I remember my dad telling me when we were driving, it was a shitty day, it was a cold day, and these people were out working construction on the road, and we were driving past them. My dad's like, that's why you stay in school there, boys. And I kind of remember nodding along. In hindsight, it's not really a great thing to say. Like, it seems like a good thing to say. But some of those people are probably content with what they're doing. And even if they're not, like, looking down on them for doing these tasks again, that that would otherwise, if they weren't there, the road would fall apart, or it would never be built in the first place. And that type of work, I mean, it deserves everybody's respect, no more or less than the people who are working in a bank, or the people who are running their own business or something like that. It's still hard work. It's all hard work, and in many cases more hard work. I mean, it's physical labor, and long hours and those types of things, and no snow days, no heat days, no rain days or whatever. kind of like, in a sad way, all of our economy is built on cheaping these people out. And that includes, overseas manufacturers and stuff like that. It just, to me, it just doesn't work long term, or it won't work long term. There's been cycles of it all the way through of disrespecting, lower economic level people. That it constantly results in, revolutions and stuff like that. And so, I'm not necessarily calling for those types of measures or anything, but yeah, it's just it's difficult to see sometimes, especially firsthand, and especially when you are kind of, you're in a position and it comes up on your computer every day about how great this company is and how we made this many $billion this quarter, and here comes the mail guy to come and drop off, a couple $100,000 checks that clients have mailed in or whatever, and neither of us, especially him, are getting like any of that. Ne- it, like how can you come to work with a good attitude every day when you're seeing how much money is going through something like this, and knowing that none of it is coming back, and just like none of them really had bitter attitudes about it, except for the odd comment about, how huge a check is or something. But I started to get bitter, not necessarily for myself, but especially for these people that were working as like the lowest level people in the company, economically. But again, like, they're there working just as hard, if not harder, than anybody else. Some of the people that are making way more bank are leaving, coming in at 10, leaving at 2, whatever. And the argument is, again, like, well, they built their business, and so they've earned that and they deserve that. And I agree to that to a certain extent. And I just think that these people, that there's a mentality that once you get to that level, especially, there can be a mentality that you did it all yourself, that the assistants that you had on the way up, they never did anything to help you. They never took time off your hands so you could do that one thing that was super important that time. They never stayed late for you so you could get that one thing done, so you wouldn't lose that client. Like, yeah, none of that stuff ever happened. So yeah, I'm obviously kind of bitter about those types of things, but it is my personal experience from one company anyways. But you see evidence of it all over the place. I mean, the whole welfare system has to prop up anybody that works, at Walmart, because they don't make enough money to afford to shop anywhere else other than Walmart and have food stamps. And food stamps are a welfare program. And so you essentially have everybody in the United States, or wherever a place like Walmart operates, subsidizing their employees, which is like the least capitalist thing in the world, especially when you consider the gross amount of profits that the corporation itself is bringing in. So yeah, that's just a couple of examples of those types of things. But maybe that's a good spot to leave it. That, again, the quote we're discussing today is a long one, two-parter. I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble. The world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of its heroes, but also by the aggregate of the tiny pushes of each honest worker. That, again, comes to you by Helen Keller, writer, activist for women's and disabled people's rights, and again, deaf and blind. Yeah, she was the first deaf and blind college graduate, and she went on to pioneer a bunch of different methods of teaching disabled people. So yeah, she was a very inspirational figure, and our world was better for having her in it. And she definitely did a bunch of small, humble tasks as far as teaching young people and setting up organizations that can fight for the rights of these people, and those created Mighty Shoves. And so that's why I thought she was interesting to have on. And that quote today is brought to you again by the new helpful app, Do You Shit? The work alarm that will yell at you until you get your shit done. That is Do You Shit, bringing us Helen Keller's quote today. Thanks again to Crooked Spies for providing the music. Follow us on Instagram at the.slack.line and Twitter at slackline_radio. You've been listening to The Boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up, dumb fairy tale name, you.
This is the Slackline Quote of the Day broadcast. We will be back tomorrow for our final one of the week, and then again back on Sunday with the full-length Slackline with Jay Wow and Bryce Jorger. Thanks again to anybody who's listening, and you guys all have a good day. Bye for now.
High tide, oh, high tide is when I ride. The wall closes in, I just continue to swim, waiting to drop in. But no fault of mine, I just cast my line, waiting for the time. Oh, high tide, when I ride. Oh, high tide is when I ride. Oh, high tide is when I ride. The water it creeps, it's getting so deep, it's over my head. The water it creeps, it's getting so deep, it's over my head.